I was at my kitchen table on a Thursday afternoon, marking essays with a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. The house was quiet in that familiar after-school way. The dishwasher hummed in the next room. A ceiling fan clicked every few seconds above me. I remember looking at the clock on the stove because my daughter, Lily, should have been home from practice. That was when my phone lit up. It was my wife, Dana. I answered, expecting something ordinary. Maybe a stop at the store. Maybe a reminder about dinner. Instead, I heard her take one shaky breath and say, "There's been an accident. Lily's at St. Andrews. They think the driver left the scene." I didn't ask her to repeat it. I set my pen down, folded the essay closed, picked up my keys. On my way out, I noticed a plain white envelope sitting near the fruit bowl by the door. No stamp, no name, just my address written in block letters. I left it there. At the time, I had no reason to think that envelope had anything to do with what was about to happen. By the end of the next day, I understood exactly why it had been delivered. But at that moment, all I knew was that my daughter was in a hospital and I needed to get there. The drive across town felt strangely orderly. Red lights, turn signals, school buses easing through intersections. It was the kind of afternoon that makes a city seem harmless. Sunlight was still sitting low on the storefront windows, and people were walking dogs, carrying grocery bags, doing normal things. I parked badly and went in through the emergency entrance. Hospitals always have the same mix of smells. Disinfectant, coffee that's been sitting too long, clean linen. There was a television on in the waiting area with the sound turned down. A toddler was crying somewhere down the hall. Shoes moved quickly across polished floors. Dana was standing near the vending machines with both hands wrapped around a paper cup she wasn't drinking from. Her mascara had smudged under one eye, though I could tell she had tried to clean it up. She looked at me, then looked away for a second, as if saying it out loud one more time might make it more real. She was crossing with the light, she said. Coach saw it happen. A black car came through the intersection too fast. It hit her and kept going. I put one hand on the back of her neck, not to comfort her with words, just to steady us both. How bad? Broken rib. Concussion, they think. Maybe more. They're still checking. I nodded once. Dana watched my face closely. She knew me well enough to notice when I went quiet in a certain way. I had spent years learning how to stay level when other people couldn't. Most of the time, that part of me stayed where it belonged, buried under school schedules, grocery lists, mortgage payments, and weekend soccer games. That afternoon, I could feel it waking up. A trauma physician came out a few minutes later. Her name tag said Drive S, Mercer. Her scrubs were wrinkled, and one cuff was damp where she had clearly just washed up. She's stable, she said. That's the important part. She has bruising along her left side, one fractured rib, and a mild internal bleed that seems to be under control. We're watching her closely tonight. Dana let out a breath she'd been holding for too long. Can we see her? Briefly. She's sedated, so she may not know you're there. Lily looked much smaller in the bed than she ever did at home. Machines always do that. They make children look fragile, even when they're strong. Her hair had dried stiff at the temple where someone had cleaned blood away. One arm was wrapped, and there was a bruise forming near her jaw. I stood on one side of the bed. Dana stood on the other. There are moments when a room gets so still that every tiny sound becomes clear. The pulse monitor, air pushing through the vent, plastic settling somewhere near the four-pole. I remember touching the blanket near Lily's hand because it was the only thing I could do that wouldn't disturb her. Then Dana said, very softly, "They got the plate." I looked at her. "Witness wrote it down," she said. "Police traced the car already." A few minutes later, a detective met us outside the room. His name was Martin Hale. Mid-40s, maybe. Plain suit. Tired eyes. He held a notebook but didn't seem eager to open it. That told me more than his expression did. "We identified the vehicle," he said. "It's registered to a 19-year-old named Bryce Mercer." I waited. Hale shifted his weight. "His father is Nolan Mercer. He owns Mercer Development Group." That name meant something in our city. Construction money. Political donations. New luxury towers where old buildings used to be. The kind of name that gets spoken a little more carefully than it should. The witness saw him driving? I asked. "Yes. But..." He glanced once at Dana, then back at me. "But the family has already retained counsel, and Mr. Mercer is saying his son was home all afternoon. They're contesting the witness identification." Dana laughed once, without humor. "Of course they are. Detective Hale lowered his voice. Between us, this isn't the first time Bryce Mercer's name has come across a desk. Reckless driving, bar fight last summer. Nothing that ever seemed to stay in the file very long. I watched him as he said it. Some people lie with confidence. Some tell the truth like they're apologizing for it. Hale was the second kind. So what happens now? I asked. He hesitated. We keep working it. That's the official answer. And the unofficial one. He looked down the hallway before answering. The unofficial one is that people with money tend to move fast. I nodded. That night, Dana finally went home to shower and bring back a few things for Lily. I told her I'd stay. After she left, I pulled the visitor chair closer to the bed and sat down. The room lights were dimmed. Outside the window, the parking garage glowed under sodium lamps. Nurses spoke in low voices at the station. Somewhere nearby, a printer started up, then stopped. I took my phone out, turned it over once in my hand, and scrolled to a number I had not called in almost 6 years. For a few seconds, I just looked at it. Then I pressed dial. He answered on the third ring. I said, "It's Daniel Reed." There was a pause on the line. Then he said, "That usually means something went very wrong." I looked at my daughter sleeping in the hospital bed. Yes, I said, it did. Then I waited. Nay, though that wasn't the name used professionally in news, did not ask unnecessary questions on the phone. He listened. I gave him a short version. My daughter had been hit in a crosswalk after evening practice. The driver left. The witness got the plate. The car belonged to the son of a developer with enough influence to make ordinary problems disappear. When I finished, the line stayed quiet for a moment. Then he said, "How old is she?" 14. Another pause. "I'm sorry, Dan. Will she recover?" "That's what the doctors are saying." He let out a slow breath. I could picture him doing it, leaning back somewhere, deciding which part of his mind to use. And the father? Nolan Mercer. That got his attention. "I know the name," he said. "Not personally, but I know the kind of man. I assumed you might." "I can make a few calls," he said. "Nothing loud. Just enough to understand the landscape. That's all I need." No one says that unless they mean the opposite. He knew that. So did I. Before hanging up, he asked one more question. "Are you trying to stay inside the lines?" I looked over at Lily, still asleep, the hospital bracelet loose around her wrist. "Yes," I said, "but I'd like to know where the lines are first." After the call, I put the phone face down. Then I sat still for a while. There is a kind of waiting that wears people down, and there is another kind that clears a space. I had learned the difference years before, in a different life, in places where the wrong movement at the wrong time could cost more than pride. So I waited the useful way. Around 10:30, a nurse came in to check Lily's and update a chart on the wall. She moved quietly, with the kind of competence that settles a room. "She's been resting well," she said. "Thank you. She may wake for a few minutes overnight. Don't be alarmed if she's confused." I nodded. When the door closed again, I looked at the chair where Dana had been sitting earlier. One of Lily's cleats was tucked beneath it, still dusty around the edges from the field. Somebody must have dropped it into the bag with her things. There was dried grass pressed into the sole. That detail stayed with me more than most of the others. A child leaves for practice with both shoes on. One of them comes back in a hospital bag. At a little after midnight, Lily stirred. Her eyes opened halfway. She looked around the room without understanding it at first, then found me. "Dad, I'm here." Her voice was rough. "Did I miss school?" I almost smiled. "You're covered." She frowned slightly, then winced. "My side hurts." "I know. Mom." She went home to get some things. "She'll be back in the morning." Lily lay still for a few seconds. Then she asked, "Did they find who did it?" Children ask direct questions because they still expect direct answers. I took my time. "They found the car." "That means they know. It means they're supposed to." She studied my face, even through the medication haze. "Kids notice what adults think they hide." "Dad." "Yes." "Don't get weird." That actually did make me smile. "I won't." She nodded once, satisfied enough, and slipped back under. The next morning, the hospital room filled with ordinary life in small, practical pieces. Paper cup coffee, a folded sweatshirt from home, Dana brushing Lily's hair as gently as she could, a doctor explaining discharge possibilities if the internal bleeding stayed stable. Sunlight moved slowly across the windowsill and lit the plastic pitcher beside the sink. At 8:15, Detective Hale called. I stepped into the hallway to answer. His tone told me what the content would be before he said it. The district attorney's office is holding off on charges, he said. They want more corroboration before they move. Why? He was quiet for a second. Officially? Because defense counsel is attacking witness reliability. And unofficially? Because Mercer's attorney spent most of the morning making phone calls. I leaned one shoulder against the wall and looked through the narrow window in Lily's door. Inside, Dana was helping her sit up enough to sip water through a straw. What do you need that you don't have? I asked. Video would help. Better witness placement. Vehicle inspection. Something physical we can tie directly to the impact. Have you seen the car? No. Their attorney says it's being serviced out of state. That was too quick. Too neat. Convenient. Yeah. He lowered his voice. Look, Mr. Reed, I'm not telling you to do anything, but I am telling you this feels coordinated, and it's moving fast. I understand. He started to say something else, then stopped. Finally, he said, I'm sorry. I thanked him for the call and hung up. When I went back into the room, Dana looked up right away. That was the detective? Yes. And they're slowing it down. She set the cup down on the tray table harder than she meant to. Of course they are. Lily looked from one of us to the other. I pulled the visitor chair closer and sat down. Hey, I said to her. Nothing for you to worry about right now. Your job is to heal. She watched me for another second, then gave a small nod. Dana knew me too well to let it go. An hour later, when Lily was asleep again, Dana followed me into the family lounge down the hall. It was nearly empty. Just a muted television, 2 armchairs by the window, and a vending machine that made a low cooling sound every few minutes. She closed the door halfway behind her. What are you thinking? I looked out at the parking lot. Daylight flattened everything there. Minivans, nurses changing shifts, a man in blue scrubs eating from a paper bag alone on a bench. I'm thinking they want time, I said. For what? To shape the story. Dana folded her arms. And what are you going to do? I turned to face her. There are marriages that run on explanations. Ours ran on recognition. Dana had known me before I became a teacher. Not the details, never those, but enough to understand that I had spent a portion of my life doing work that taught me patience in a very specific way. I'm going to stay calm, I said. She held my eyes for a long moment. That answer always means you've already made a list. I didn't deny it. She looked down, then back at me. Just tell me one thing. Are you going to do anything that puts us at risk? No. Anything illegal? No. She believed me because I meant it. That mattered. She came a little closer and touched my wrist. Then don't shut me out. I won't. When she went back to Lily's room, I stayed in the lounge for another minute and pulled out my phone again. There were 3 missed calls from a number I recognized from Washington. Nate had moved faster than usual. That meant one of 2 things. Either the situation was larger than it looked, or the name Mercer had opened doors. I called him back. He answered immediately. I have a preliminary picture, he said, and it's not a good one. Go ahead. Nolan Mercer's public image is clean. Civic boards, scholarship dinners, development ribbon cuttings. But under that, there's a familiar pattern. Layered LLCs, shell property holdings, quiet settlements, labor complaints that disappear, a county commissioner who votes his way every time zoning comes up. I found a pen on the side table and a paper visitor pamphlet. I turned it over and started writing on the blank side. What about the son? Bryce is 20. 2 prior traffic incidents, 1 sealed juvenile assault complaint, and a bar altercation last spring that somehow became mutual misunderstanding by Monday morning. Substances. Nothing provable on paper. Plenty off paper. I wrote that down too. Anything else? Nate paused. Yes. There's a local attorney who handles cleanup for Nolan. Name's Victor Shaw. Former prosecutor. Smooth, expensive, and very good at turning facts into fog. I wrote the name and underlined it once. Dan, Nate said. Before you ask, I'm not sending you anything sensitive. But I can tell you this man Mercer doesn't solve problems. He contains them. That means there will be process, documents, pressure on witnesses, maybe quiet offers, insurance settlement. That would be my guess. I looked at the notes in my hand. Names, patterns, structure. When systems repeat themselves, they leave seams. I appreciate it, I said. You're not done asking. No, good, he said. Because there's one more thing. Someone dropped a message with an old contact asking whether you were still local. I stopped writing. When? Yesterday evening. Before or after the accident? After. That changed the shape of things. Who asked? Couldn't get a clean answer. Intermediary route. But it suggests someone either knows who you used to be or they're trying to confirm it. I thought about the white envelope on my front door. No stamp. No name. Hand-delivered. Understood, I said. After the call, I went home for the first time since the accident. The house smelled faintly like toast and lemon dish soap. One of Lily's school hoodies was draped over the back of a chair. Her math book was still open on the counter where she'd left it the night before practice. The whole place had that interrupted feeling homes get when someone leaves expecting to come back in an hour and doesn't. The envelope was still by the fruit bowl. I picked it up carefully and opened it at the kitchen counter. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No greeting. No signature. Just one line, typed in plain black letters. Take the settlement before people start asking difficult questions. I read it twice. Then I folded it once and slipped it into a drawer beside the refrigerator where we kept spare batteries, takeout menus, and a small flashlight. No fingerprints in a useful world. No camera on our street worth trusting. No threat specific enough for police to act on. Just pressure, delivered in a style I had seen before. Soft edges. No direct language. Enough to disturb. Not enough to prosecute. I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee and stood at the counter until it cooled. Then I made a list. Not a dramatic list. Not an angry one. Just a clean page with 3 lines. Step 1. Confirm what can still be moved. Step 2. Identify what exists outside their reach. Step 3. Let process do the talking. After that, I called the main office of Mercer Development and asked for an appointment. The assistant who answered had the careful, polished tone of someone trained to filter people before they ever reach the real room. Mr. Mercer's schedule is extremely full. I'm sure it is, I said. Please let him know Lily Reed's father is calling. That bought me 2 seconds of silence. Then, 1 moment. When she came back, her voice was slightly different. Mr. Mercer can give you 10 minutes tomorrow at 11:30. Thank you. I ended the call and wrote the time down. Then I opened the drawer again, looked at the typed note one more time, and put it back. For a while, I stood in the quiet kitchen with the refrigerator humming behind me and sunlight on the counter. Then my phone vibrated. It was a text from a number I did not know. The bank across from the intersection keeps its own camera archive. City police usually forget that. No name. No follow-up. Just that. I read it once. Then I waited. I did not answer the anonymous text. There was no point. If someone wanted me to know about the bank camera, they had already decided I should know it. Anything I sent back would only add noise. So I took a screenshot, locked my phone, and went back to the hospital. Lily was awake when I got there, sitting up a little more comfortably, her hair tied back with one of Dana's extra bands. The color was coming back into her face. That mattered more than anything else in the room. Dana was peeling an orange by the window. The sharp citrus smell cut through the usual hospital air. Morning light fell across the blanket. Somewhere down the hall, a cart rattled over tile, then faded. How's the pain? I asked. Better, Lily said. Still annoying. That sounds like progress. She gave me a tired little smile. I sat down and asked about school, teammates, homework, ordinary things. That was not avoidance. Ordinary things are how people come back to themselves after something sudden. You give them their own life back in manageable pieces. After a while, Dana looked at me and said, "You're leaving for a bit, aren't you?" Yes. She set the orange peel on a napkin and nodded once. How long? Not long. She knew better than to ask for more when I was already measuring the next few hours in my head. At 10:40, I parked across from Mercer Development Group. Their office tower stood in the middle of downtown like it had been designed to make people lower their voices. Glass, steel, polished stone, a fountain out front that served no practical purpose. Men in fitted suits moving in and out with phones pressed to their ears. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of cedar and expensive cleaning products. The floor was glossy enough to reflect the ceiling lights. Behind the reception desk sat a woman in a pale blazer with a calm, practiced smile. "I'm here to see Mr. Mercer," I said. "Your name?" "Daniel Reed." She checked something on her screen, then looked up with the expression people use when they've been told to expect discomfort but not to show it. "Of course. Mr. Mercer can see you now." His office was on the top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A city view meant to suggest control. Framed architectural renderings on one wall. A long shelf of awards and civic plaques on another. Nolan Mercer stood when I walked in, but only halfway, as if politeness had become optional somewhere along the way. He was a broad man in his late 50s, well-dressed, silver at the temples, the kind of person who had spent years being listened to without interruption. "Mr. Reed," he said, "please, sit." I remained standing a moment longer, then took the chair opposite his desk. He folded his hands. "First, let me say how sorry I am about your daughter. Truly, I have children myself. I understand how upsetting this must be." His voice was smooth, measured, not hurried. I said nothing. He continued, "My attorney has explained that there seems to be some confusion about the events of yesterday. My son has denied being involved, and until facts are established, I think we should all be careful." Careful with what? With assumptions. I looked at the framed photo on the credenza behind him. Nolan on a stage somewhere, shaking hands with a mayor. Bryce stood off to one side in a graduation gown, smiling in the easy way of young men who assume the world has already been arranged for them. "A witness gave police your son's plate," I said. A witness was shaken. Memory under stress can be unreliable. "Your son's car is out of state." It was already scheduled for service. I nodded once. He noticed that I noticed the speed of the answer. Then he leaned back slightly and changed direction. "Mr. Reed, these situations often become harder than they need to be. Lawyers get involved. Insurance companies posture. People hold on to anger when what they really need is closure." There it was. Not the offer itself, the frame around it. "I'm not looking for closure," I said. "Of course. What I mean is, if your family has medical expenses, ongoing care, missed work, those are real burdens. My office is prepared to make sure those burdens are handled generously." I looked at him for a few seconds before answering. "Are you offering help?" I asked, "or are you pricing silence?" His face did not change much, just a slight stillness around the eyes. "I'm trying to resolve a difficult situation respectfully." I stood up. "Then here's the respectful version. If your son was driving that car, he should turn himself in." Nolan gave a small, almost patient smile. "I think you may be underestimating how complicated these things can become." "No," I said. "I think I understand exactly how simple this is." He stayed seated as I walked toward the door. Then he said, "Mr. Reed." I turned back. His tone was softer now, less polished, more direct. "You seem like a reasonable man, a teacher, a father. I'd hate to see grief pull you into places that are unpleasant to come back from." It was not a threat in legal language. It was a threat in real language. I looked at him for a moment, then checked my watch. "You had the chance to handle this cleanly," I said. "You still do." He almost laughed. "And if I don't, I let the silence sit there long enough to become part of the answer." Then I said, "Then other people will start looking at things you've kept orderly for a long time." I left before he could reply. In the elevator down, I took out my phone and sent 3 messages. The first was to Nate. "Need a quiet review of Mercer Development banking relationships, shell entities, and known counsel. Prioritize anything tied to city contracts." The second was to a former colleague who now worked in compliance for a private financial firm. Question: if a development company's vehicle disappears after a pedestrian strike, what records tend to move first? The third was to Detective Hale. "You may want to preserve any camera footage from private businesses around the Willow and Grand intersection before anyone thinks to cycle backups. Start with First County Bank." I put the phone away and walked back through the lobby. Outside, the air had warmed. Traffic moved steadily down the avenue. Somewhere nearby, a jackhammer started and stopped. People carried coffee, checked watches, crossed streets under green lights, lived inside the assumption that systems mostly worked. By the time I got back to my car, Hale had already answered. On it, "How did you know about the bank?" I did not answer that either. At home, I opened a legal pad at the kitchen table and began writing down only what could be proved or soon might be. 1. Witness plate match. 2. Vehicle location changed after incident. 3. Settlement pressure before charges filed. 4. Anonymous written warning. 5. Bank camera likely independent archive. Then I added one more line beneath them. Silence is useful when it makes other people move too soon. That afternoon, 2 things happened. First, my former colleague replied. Vehicle matters usually create a paper trail through service scheduling, insurance communication, transport logs, or dealership intake records. People hide cars emotionally. Systems rarely do. Second, Nate called. I've started pulling at the edges, he said. And Daniel, your friend Nolan has more edges than I expected. I picked up my pen again. Outside, a delivery truck stopped in front of the house, idled for a few seconds, then moved on. Inside, the kitchen was very still. Then I waited. Nate did not waste words. He said, Mercer Development is clean enough for a website and dirty enough for a hearing. I wrote that down. He went on in the same calm tone. There are 4 limited liability companies connected to Nolan through proxies. 2 hold land. 1 handles equipment leasing. 1 appears to exist mostly to move money between invoices. Nothing dramatic on its face. But the timing is strange. How strange. 3 transfers moved within hours of your meeting with him. I looked at the page in front of me. Amount. Not huge. Just careful. The kind of movement people make when they're trying not to look like they're moving. That fit. What else? A service request for a black coupe was created through a contracted transport company at 6:12 p.m. the day of the accident. Pickup listed for a private garage, not a residence. I stopped writing for a second. Can you send me the transport company name? No, but I can tell you this. If law enforcement asks the right question quickly, there will be records. Intake photos too, if the receiving facility follows policy. Understood. He paused. There's another issue. Nolan's attorney, Victor Shaw, made contact with someone at the district attorney's office this morning. I don't know the content. I know the timing. That's enough. Daniel. Yes. You sound steady. I am. That usually means you've already decided the order. I have. After we hung up, I rewrote the list on a fresh page. Step 1. Preserve what cannot be talked away. Step 2. Put every fact in the hands of people required to log it. Step 3. Say less than everyone else. That was the whole strategy. Not pressure. Not speed. Structure. I called Detective Hale. He answered on the second ring, sounding like he was already walking somewhere. Hale. It's Reed. Good timing. We got the bank. That was fast. And the camera angle is partial, but it's enough to matter. Black coupe entering the intersection after the light changed. Driver profile visible through the windshield for about 2 seconds. Can you identify him? Not yet conclusively, but it's strong. Good. There was a brief silence. Then he said, there's more. Once we requested the bank footage, somebody from Mercer's legal team called the bank manager asking whether they were required to cooperate without a subpoena. That mattered almost as much as the footage. Did the bank preserve the archive? Yes. The manager got nervous and copied everything. I leaned back in my chair. Then here's your next move, I said. Subpoena the transport records for the vehicle. It was moved the same evening through a contracted service. Private garage pickup. He did not interrupt. Also request any dealership or repair intake photos. If the car has front-end damage, they'll have documented it before anyone thought to control the story. Hale exhaled slowly. You've done this kind of thing before. I'll let that sit there. Then I said, I've seen people confuse influence with process. He gave a short, dry laugh. Fair enough. Before ending the call, he lowered his voice. I should tell you this. The DA's office is suddenly more interested now that the bank footage exists. Somebody there may have realized this won't stay quiet. That tends to happen. When the call ended, I put the phone face down and went to make tea. Not coffee, tea. The kettle clicked on. I stood at the counter and watched the yard through the window over the sink. Lily's training cones were still stacked by the fence where she had left them last weekend. Our dog had worn a narrow track through the grass along the side gate. Small things. Useful things to look at. Dana came in while I was pouring the water. You have that look again, she said. What look? The one where the room gets quieter around you. I handed her the second mug. The bank had footage. She held still for a moment. Enough. Enough to keep the story from being buried. She nodded and sat down at the table. The steam rose between us. And now they start making mistakes. That evening, Lily was discharged with instructions, medication, and the kind of careful movement that makes a house feel temporarily rearranged. Dana helped her settle on the couch with pillows along one side. I adjusted the lamp so the light wouldn't hit her eyes too sharply. The living room smelled faintly of soup and clean laundry. Lily looked around at everything as if noticing home for the first time. Can I go back to school Monday? Probably not, Dana said. Lily frowned. I said, you can use the time to become impossible to live with. That got a tired smile out of her. Later, After Dana had gone upstairs to set out blankets in our room in case Lily needed one of us nearby overnight, I sat at the dining table with my notes. At 8:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Check your front porch." I did not move right away. I turned off the kitchen light first so I could see the reflection in the glass. Then I stepped to the side window and looked out across the porch. Nothing moving. No car idling. No one at the curb. I opened the front door. A padded mailing envelope sat on the mat. No postage. Hand-delivered again. Inside was a flash drive and a folded service receipt. No note this time. The receipt listed a vehicle transfer order under a leasing company Nate had mentioned earlier that day. Pickup time, 6:12 p.m. Destination, a luxury performance garage outside the city. I held the paper under the hallway light and read it twice. Then I looked at the flash drive in my palm. Small. Ordinary. Cold. From upstairs, I could hear Dana moving slowly across the bedroom floor, and Lily coughing once in her sleep. I took the envelope into the kitchen, set it beside my notes, and did nothing for a full minute. Then I reached for my laptop and waited. I did not plug the flash drive in right away. That would have been careless. Instead, I called a man named Aaron Bell. Years ago, he had worked in digital forensics for a federal contractor. These days, he ran a quiet cybersecurity firm out of a business park 40 minutes north of the city. He was careful, discreet, and never curious in the wrong direction. He answered with his usual flat calm. "Aaron, it's Daniel Reed." A short pause. "That usually means I should find a clean machine." "Yes. Bring it." An hour later, I was parked behind his office building under a row of weak security lights. The place smelled faintly of cut grass and warm asphalt. Inside, his office was exactly what I expected. No decor, no personal photos, just a desk, a pair of monitors, and a locked cabinet against the wall. He took the envelope from me without comment and laid everything out under a desk lamp. "Receipt first," he said. He read the service order, glanced up once, then set it down. "That part is probably real." "Probably. Real documents get copied too. Doesn't mean it's false. Just means I want to know what kind of company sent it." Then he held up the flash drive. "If somebody wanted to hurt you with this, there are easier ways. But let's not reward optimism." He connected it to an isolated workstation, ran 2 scans, then opened the contents without letting the machine touch any outside network. We looked at the screen in silence. The drive contained 37 files, mostly images, service intake photos, vehicle undercarriage shots, front-end close-ups, time-stamped, a black coupe with damage concentrated on the front passenger side, a cracked lower grille, and traces of what looked like pale fabric caught near the wheel well. Aaron clicked through them slowly, methodically. No comments. No reaction. Then he opened a PDF. It was the intake checklist from the repair facility. Date matched the accident. The listed customer was the leasing shell company from the receipt. Damage description: impact to front fascia and right front quarter panel. Special handling note: rush request, private billing, no insurer contact. Aaron sat back a fraction. "Well," he said, "that's not subtle. Anything manipulated? Not that I can see at first pass." He zoomed into the metadata, checked timestamps, and compared internal file sequence numbers. "Looks internally consistent. Can you preserve everything?" "Already doing it." He copied the contents to a clean encrypted archive, printed a simple verification sheet, and slid it across the desk. "No names," he said. "No stories. Just file integrity and preservation chain from this point forward." That's enough. On the drive back home, I kept the radio off. Traffic was light. A few stores were still open. A pharmacy sign blinked blue and white near the intersection by the hospital. Ordinary city light. Ordinary late-hour quiet. By the time I got home, I knew the next move had to be simple. No theatrics. No private pressure. No personal meeting in a parking lot. No extended phone calls. No emotional language. Just structure. The next morning, I made 4 copies of the receipt in the verification sheet Aaron had prepared. Then I wrote down the order again. 1. Detective Hale. 2. District Attorney Intake. 3. Repair Facility Preservation Notice through Counsel. 4. 1 Conversation with Nolan Mercer, in public, with nothing vague left in the room. Dana found me at the table while I was putting documents into plain folders. She looked at the stack, then at me. "This is the part where everything gets formal." "Yes." She nodded once. "Good." Around noon, I met Detective Hale at a coffee shop across from the county administration building. Not a dramatic place. Bright windows, scratched wooden tables, burnt espresso smell, a college student typing with both earbuds in, two retirees sharing a muffin by the front glass. Hale arrived carrying a paper cup and the fatigue of a man who had not slept enough for 3 straight days. I handed him the folder. He opened it right there, scanning the receipt first, then the preservation sheet. He did not say anything for a few seconds. Finally, he looked up. Where did this come from? Someone who wanted the truth on record. That's not an answer. It's the one I have. He held my eyes another moment, then closed the folder. All right, here's where we are. We have the bank footage preserved. We have a subpoena in motion for the transport company. We also learned the vehicle entered a private repair network under a shell billing arrangement before the owner reported any damage. That should be enough for a warrant. It should. But Shaw is still slowing things. He's arguing chain issues, privacy issues, every issue that buys time. I nodded. Then take away the room. He frowned slightly. Meaning do not argue the whole case at once. Ask for preservation first. Lock the documents. Lock the images. Lock the service records. Once systems start logging compliance, people get less creative. He stared at the folder for a second, then gave a small, reluctant smile. You really do think in steps. Yes. He stood up. I'll move this within the hour. After he left, I stayed at the table and watched condensation slide down the side of my water glass. Then I called Mercer Development again. The assistant answered in the same polished voice as before. This is Beverly. This is Daniel Reed. I need 10 minutes with Mr. Mercer today. Mr. Mercer is unavailable. Please tell him I'm calling about the repair facility in Brookhaven and the service intake photos. That bought me silence again. Then, one moment. When she returned, she said, Mr. Mercer can see you at 4. Thank you. His office looked the same as the day before. Same city view. Same awards. Same polished quiet. But the room felt different once you knew where the seams were. Nolan remained standing when I entered this time. I'm beginning to think you enjoy showing up uninvited, he said. You invited me. A faint smile crossed his face, but it did not hold. What is this about? I placed a single sheet of paper on his desk. Not the photos, not the receipt, just the verification page with the file count and timestamps. He looked down at it, then back up at me. What am I looking at? A preserved record of your son's vehicle at intake. His expression changed by less than most people would notice. But it changed. That doesn't mean anything. It means the car was moved. It means it was photographed. It means other people now have records they're required to keep. You picked up the paper but did not sit down. You seem very confident. I'm being precise. He set the page back down. Let me save us both some time, he said. You think paperwork creates certainty. It doesn't. It creates interpretation.